If you're living in a Lawsy town, you're better off than the rest. You're living in God's great garden, you could even say you're blessed. Chapter 17. If you're living in a Lawsy town. To this day, John Laws claims to have made Old Man Emu a hit in Sydney. Bob Rogers claims the same. I'm thankful to both of them for their encouragement and support in those early days, and they have continued to support me now for more than 40 years. Some say the song was going to be a hit anyway. Old Man Emu still has something that is very hard to explain. I think it is the rhythm of the lyrics more than anything. Young children today love the song just as much as when it was first released. In 2006, I agreed to travel to Lorient in France for the Celtic Festival. Mary Kay loved any excuse to visit France, so off we went. It was at that festival that I realised the true power of Old Man Emu. I fancy myself that I can get by with a bit of French, enough to impress them that I'm trying at least. At one of my concerts, I was offered an interpreter to explain my introductory stories in French. An English person who could speak French was amused at the interpreter's French explanation to the song Diamantina Drover. He told us in French, she said to me, that a drover is a man who drives sheep. Most of the audience didn't understand my lyrics, how could they? But they almost broke the portable wooden dance floor, jumping up and down to Old Man Emu. When the music stopped in the song and I said, "Well, the eagle's flying round and round. I keep my 2 feet firmly on the ground. I can't fly, but I'm telling you, I can run the pants of a kangaroo," they'd all stop dancing and crouch down until the music started again, and then they would dance even more wildly. I understand now that there is something intrinsically Celtic in the rhythm of the words that triggers something very deep in the Celtic soul. I've never come close to reproducing that rhythm in another song. Weird, isn't it? That song was my first attempt at writing. I don't recall exactly how the friendship developed from that first meeting with John Laws, but I do remember catching up with Lawsy at Jumbo Jim's panel bedding shop in Sydney. Jumbo was like a big brother to Lawsy. He probably had the biggest American country music collection in Australia, if not the world. Overseas record companies gave him all the new releases. In between smash repairs, Jumbo had regular barbecues where anyone famous connected to country music would go, including Johnny Cash, Roger Miller, Willie Nelson, and of course Lawsy. Phil Matthews encouraged my Lawsy connection, and I decided to write a song about his show. The song was recorded at the Channel 7 television studio in Epping. It was called "It's a Grab It While It's Going Kind of Life," a terrible song about a floor tiler who listened to Lawsy every day. It was the beginning of some 30 jingles I wrote for Lawsy over the next 40 years. Lawsy loved all the jingles, and because he was so trusting, he'd play them on air as soon as I handed a tape to him. Of course, he would give every new single of mine a spin as well, but only once, generally. If he didn't like the song or if it wasn't popular, that was it. He even played the vasectomy song until it was banned, as well as Rip Rip Woodchip, which was controversial. Lawsy is no greenie, so for him to play Rip Rip proved to me he was a loyal mate. I think he only played it once, but it had an impact. The most significant thing Lawsy has done for me has been to help people get used to hearing a normal Aussie accent in songs. I'll never stop reminding people that this was a rare thing to hear on radio at the time. Between the 50s and 80s, radio announcers went from Aussie versions of BBC accent to studio American Aussie accents, like disc jockeys such as John Tove, to the normal everyday Aussie speech of today. Even Lawsy sounded a lot different then to the way he does now. In other words, we are no longer putting on the style, as I say. I wish I could say the same about all Australian country music artists today. There is a bond between me and Lawsy that's not easy to explain. I think he feels most at home talking to people on air. I guess being physically among people is something I've become used to in my business, but it can be harder for radio announcers. In December 2006, Lawsy actually said on air, I happened to be listening at the time, that he and I should take a trip to the outback. I could tell straight away that it would probably be his last ride out in the bush. I guess he thought I would be ideal company for such a trip. Luckily, I've never bothered working much in December. I regard that month as family time. He calls me his little brother, so I guess that fits. I soon found out through my good friend Jan Hayes from Uramina, south of Alice Springs, that we could link up bed and breakfast stations from the Flinders Ranges right through to Alice Springs. This suited Lawsy because we didn't have to socialise with many people that way. Actually, I don't blame Lawsy for being shy. I soon realised that punters find it hard to leave him alone. I'm wary of too much attention myself, but I usually manage to slip around relatively unnoticed. Lawsy stands out like a neon sign because he's so tall. On this trip, he had a very bad back and was using a walking stick. That made him stand out even more. I'll never forget when we needed a new tyre in Coober Pedy for his flash Lexus four-wheel drive. First, we visited a recommended tyre dealer. Lawsy was so impressed with the unassuming bloke who ran the shop, but he didn't have the correct wheel size for the bloody Lexus. So we had to go to another bloke who had a reputation for ripping off tourists. We both stood at the tyre service counter and were ignored for a while. Then, when we asked about a tyre for the Lexus, the bloke's immediate reaction was, that'll take a day or so to come from Adelaide. So we stood there listening to this mongrel laying it on thick on the phone about the high price of the tyre and the delivery costs and so on. But somewhere during his bullshit, the penny dropped, and he realised it was Lawsy standing there. Well, I've never heard an attitude changing mid-sentence like it in my life. I had so much pleasure in watching him squirm as he told us to leave the Lexus and a new tyre would be on it by 8 o'clock the next morning. Lawsy was huge on radio out there. Imagine how much damage he could have done to the tyre dealer. What a great evening we had, chuckling about that in an underground restaurant, surrounded by all the magnificent outback colours in the sandstone.